take the note off my screen to hit the record button. All right, I'm going to admit some of our adoring public. All right. Yeah, I'll give people another minute or two to join us. Hello, Jeff. How are you today? Good to see you.
Ditto.
And Tom, Art, Lindsay, how are y'all? Glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. Well, 12:02, what do you say? Get the show on the road?
Sounds good.
So again, thanks everybody for joining us today. It's as stipulated in our federal enabling legislation that we hold regular meetings open to the public, and so we publicize it far and wide, and happy to have the audience when we get them. So anyway, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm sorry, just a couple of quick notices here that if you do have questions, simply send them through the chat feature and we'll pick them up as we're able to, probably at the end of the meeting. And thanks again to Mariah, who is one of our board members and at the controls for us today. So the technicals, thankfully, are being handled by her. Anyway, I'm Dan Bolignani. I'm Executive Director of the Upper Housatonic Valley National Heritage Area. Today is Wednesday, April 12th, and it is now 12:03 p.m. This is, again, our semi-annual public meeting. And thanks again to all of you and all of our board members who are able to join us today. I'd like to very, very quickly run down our Board of Trustees just as a matter of record. And my deepest gratitude. I think I've got the greatest board in the world. Alphabetically, Catherine Boughton, North Canaan Town Historian. Will Conklin, Executive Director of Green Agers, who is our chair. Allison Dixon from the Housatonic Valley Association. Mariah Fogg, Community Conservation Manager at Berkshire Natural Resources Council. Leslie Hertzberg, who's the Executive Director at Berkshire County Historical Society. Rob Hoogs, President of the Bidwell House Museum. Paul Ivory is one of our emeritus board members, currently chairing the Great Barrington Historical Commission. Gary Levier, Great Barrington Historical Society, Paul O'Brien, who's president of the Sheffield Historical Society, Marge Smith, curator at Kent Historical Society, Craig Langlois, who is just new to a position of equity of learning district data coordinator for Pittsfield Public Schools. We're happy to have Pittsfield Public Schools represented here, and Jane Wynn, who is our treasurer, who's executive director of the Berkshire Environmental Action Team. And I neglected to say that, let's see, Rob Hoobs also serves as secretary of the organization, and Marge Smith also serves as vice chair of our organization. So with that, I will turn it over to our esteemed chair, Will Conklin.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you for to all who are here and to the board members that can attend. It's a unique opportunity to reach out to the public and do what perhaps we do too little of, which is to make public all the amazing works that Housatonic Heritage does. And when I say Housatonic Heritage, I mean Dan Bolognani and the other folks that work for the organization and on behalf of the organization, including Diane Cody and Judith and others. It often flies under the radar, but catalyzes many of the cultural projects that happen in the area. Dan's footprint and can be seen in so many projects that have blossomed into full-throated songs in the community, and we are much the better for it. Just for those of you that are less familiar with Housatonic Heritage, do a little digging, look into the historical artifacts, look into the bike trails, look into the youth work in the community, and the as far and wide as word by word and many other cultural happenings. Chances are that Housatonic Heritage has had a little something to do with it. And when I say a little something, it's so often just that little nudge that gets things off the ground and going, because we also have an amazing resource of folks in the community that are willing to take that and run if they see that support coming from something like Housatonic Heritage. So that's what I see as the blessing of Housatonic Heritage, utilizing that designation and our federal funds to really push forward the projects in the community that folks want to do and are passionate about and need that little bit of encouragement that gets things going. And then we can put that stamp on it, that this is supported by our federal tax dollars and supported by our community, and that's a big deal. That's my usual spiel. Again, the kudos goes to Dan. He is an ED par excellence. He really lives and breathes this work, and we are extremely grateful to him for that and all the projects that he helps along. So I'll turn it back over to you, Dan, with that.
Great, thank you, Will. I'm flattered, and I truly appreciative of the support of my board. I really am. Yeah, as Will said, our real strength is the ability to act regionally and to work as a catalyst for good ideas that are brought to us. And we seek partnerships. We seek concepts that have great community support, and we continue to look for good ideas. They come to us in a variety of ways, including through this forum here, our semi-annual public meetings. But as we encourage people, if there are things happening in the communities that we serve, they should be brought to us. And when we're able, we support the development of cultural programming, historic preservation ideas, natural resource conservation, etc., things that are in our wheelhouse. That being said, let me give you a quick overview of our profit and loss. This is our fiscal year to date through March 31. So the first 2 quarters of our fiscal year. It's simply reflective of the fact that we are in about the same cash position that we anticipated and that we were in last year. We, as mentioned, enjoy the support of Congress and a somewhat predictable stream of federal funding through which to undertake our programs, and we remain entirely grateful for the congressional delegation in both Connecticut and Massachusetts. I had the great honor of meeting with staff of Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, our senators from Massachusetts, and Dick Blumenthal and Chris Murphy, our senators from Connecticut, as well as Congressman Richie Neal's staff and Congresswoman Johanna Hayes' staff. So that all happened in February, and I'm here to report we enjoy the support of left, right, and above from Congress. So I hope that never changes. Nothing too noteworthy. I just wanted to, call your attention that we are on track and we are on budget and in essentially the same cash position that we were at this time last year. So no surprises there. Next, I wanted to bring to your attention a list of current active programs. There are a lot of programs that we engage in on an occasional basis. These are ones that we're working on pretty aggressively right now. The region-wide Iron Heritage Trail, which was one of the underpinnings for our initial designation as a National Heritage Area. And that project continues to move forward. We actually are partners at Beckley Iron Furnace in East Canaan, are about to undertake a capital campaign to restore the office building there. As you may know, the blast furnace itself, which is Connecticut's only industrial monument and is a state park. Jeffrey Brown, thanks for joining us today. But we remain supportive of the work that they're doing there, and I think they're taking the next step by undertaking a capital campaign to do some substantial restoration work on the office building there at Beckley Furnace. One of the very early programs that we undertook was the Regional African American Heritage Trail. And that program continues to be very robust, with most recent iterations of that being a conversation with Congress about creating a Du Bois National Historic Site that aggregates all of Du Bois related sites in and around Great Barrington. And that manifests itself in our support over the last several years of the restoration of the historic Clinton AME Zion Church in downtown Great Barrington, now named the Du Bois Freedom Center. And Eugenie Sills is on the call today and will be giving you more information about the progress there on that significant historic preservation project. Housatonic Heritage remains supportive of that. We sit on the board there, and we act as a conduit for federal funding into that program. So it's a wonderful project, and has it will have a very high profile once it's completed. It's got a reasonably high profile even as it stands now. We work closely with the Stockbridge-Muncie Community Band of Mohican Indians with ancestral homelands here in Berkshire County, and in particular Stockbridge. And we continue to work with the Stockbridge-Muncie community and the trustees of reservations on helping the Stockbridge-Muncie community to research and reveal their history here in the area. So that's ongoing, and as more programming and exhibits and work is being done, we continue to push that out via email and on our social media. Judith Monachina will speak a little further about this, but we have the great privilege of partnership with Berkshire Community College to operate the Regional Oral History Center. And Judith Monachina is the director of that, and she'll talk more about that. But that program provides resources predominantly to history organizations, but it goes well beyond that as technical expertise and funding in some cases, equipment opportunities in some cases for oral history projects. So a lot to that program, and I'll let Judith tell you more about that coming up. I already mentioned the Du Bois National Historic Site Program. That's a work in progress, requires input from the National Park Service and legislation from Congress. So again, it's a complex issue, but we continue to work toward elevating the profile of Du Bois in Great Barrington. He was and is a significant national, international figure in civil rights and social justice issues that are just as relevant today as during his lifetime. So it's a worthwhile project that we continue to support. We work with regional partners, and many of you are on the call today, on what the National Park Service initiated as Operation Pollination, which is really focused on preserving, identifying the plight of pollinators to begin with, but then providing resources and education and tools for average citizens to help reverse the damage that's being done to pollinator habitat. And Vivian is on the call today and will be speaking more about Operation Pollination when we get to that. Upcoming this fall will be our 21st annual Heritage Walks program. And I know many of you have been involved either as a participant or a walk leader. And it's the time of year when we're soliciting Heritage Walk leaders and starting to put the lineup of fall walks together. Again, though it's the 21st year, it is each Saturday and Sunday throughout the month of September. And I think the final date is Sunday, October 1. So it does flip over a little into October. We run a program here in Connecticut's regional school system one called the Local Heritage Learning Lab, and it's a Teach the Teachers program where each year we solicit through Region 1's administrative offices, and this year's cohort of local educators are, we have 5 teachers of different grade levels, different disciplines, and we provide professional development on local heritage topics. This program typically begins with an August immersion course at the aforementioned Beckley Furnace, and providing resources to our teachers about the early iron industry. But we also provide professional development sessions throughout the school year. This year, we had professional development sessions at Great Mountain Forest in Norfolk, at the Housatonic River. Thank you to Housatonic Valley Association for facilitating that, and a professional development session at Sharon Historical Society. And we thank you at Sharon Historical for that. So it's a wonderful program that helps integrate local heritage into our schools. Unfortunately, we find that teachers don't have enough resources that are directly related to sites and history that's nearby. And we're working to change that a few teachers at a time. And finally, the last program I want to call your attention to is a program that we've been working on for a dozen years, and that's the Western New England Greenway. It's a bikeway from Norwalk, Connecticut to the Canadian border, and we're working with dozens of partners to create the bikeway. This sign here happens to be it's Cornwall, Connecticut. But this past year, we've undertaken a significant push to get roadway directional signage just like this for the Connecticut section. So we've actually installed these signs all the way from Norwalk, the exception being Norwalk is still working on installing them, but right to the Massachusetts border. This route, it's a road cycling route for long distance cyclists, actually comes up Weatog Road and terminates at the Massachusetts border, or at least the signed program terminates at the Massachusetts border at Bartholomew's Cobble. And we hope to pick up the program of signing the Massachusetts section of the trail, starting at Bartholomew's Cobble and taking it all the way to Pownell, Vermont, this summer and fall. So look for signs popping up on a roadway near you. It not only helps to guide cyclists safely along these side roads generally, we try and avoid any US or state highways. We need to, on some occasions, be on them for a short period of time, but these are predominantly low speed, low volume roads. But it not only alerts cyclists to the fact that they're on a US bicycle route, but also alerts motorists to the fact that they're on a hopefully well-used bicycling route. But anyway, that was just a brief, maybe a little less than brief overview of current programming that's active. So at this point, I guess I will turn this over to, let's see. Mariah, you had the local heritage learning lab up, so I won't go back on that. Let me turn the meeting over to Eugenie Sills, who's the project manager for the Du Bois Freedom Center, and that many of you may know as formerly the Clinton Church Restoration Project. So it's a historic preservation project in downtown Great Barrington. Eugenie, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I will share my screen so you can look at some pictures. Okay. So, whoops, hello. Thanks so much, Dan. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. When I presented last August, I believe it was, we had recently announced our new name, the name of the Du Bois Freedom Center. So we're no longer Clinton Church Restoration. We have a new name. Our official name is the W.E.B. Du Bois Center for Freedom and Democracy, but we are known as the Du Bois Freedom Center. And you can see our mission here is to educate the public about the life and legacy of Du Bois, who was born and raised in Great Barrington, and the rich African-American heritage in the Berkshires. We also spent a good part of the latter half of last year sort of rolling out that name and logo, sharing it with the community throughout the Berkshires. And you can see a few photos here of various events that were held. Our board chair, Ray Gunn, in the upper right-hand corner at the launch event with one of our board members, Beth Carlson. I will say that the Yo-Yo Ma pop-up concert I missed because I was away. It was a complete surprise. It was actually not a planned event. Dan actually, I think, got a call or an email saying that he wanted to come. We had talked with him earlier in the summer, and that was a really fun, spontaneous event. Oops. So while we did expand our programming last year, and I talked a bit about it last time, so I won't review it, it brought great visibility to the project, to the center. And yet we continue to be asked, how the restoration of the little church on Elm Court is going. And obviously that progress has been less apparent. So I thought what I would do briefly today is sort of walk you through the phases of this project and give you a bit of an update. So this is a multi-phase project, a multi-year project. We bought the church in 2017. It had been deconsecrated, and we ambitiously embarked on what we thought was an initial phase to repair the roof, replace the roof, and do some structural stabilization. And that turned into more of a structural job than a roof job. You can see the photo here is of
Eugenie, I don't think your slides aren't advancing for us. Just seeing the mission still.
Oh dear, that's so odd. Okay, sorry, that's my screen sharing is paused. I'm going to try that again. So sorry. Okay, can you see?
Mission.
Okay, let's try this again. Can you see the photos?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So these are the photos I was talking about, the events that we did last summer and fall, the pop-up Yo-Yo Ma event. And this is the little church on Elm Court, as Ray Gunn calls it. And people have asked, sort of what's happening. So can you now see the project phases?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Sorry about that, everyone. So as I was saying, it's a multi-phase project. We have completed the initial phase, which was roof repair and structural stabilization. As I was saying, it turned into much more of a structural stabilization and repair job than we had anticipated. You can see in the image here, part of the south wall being rebuilt. We had to rebuild the entire south wall of both the former sanctuary and parsonage. We are now we now have 2 more phases of structural work to the superstructure and raising the building. And then designing for the build out, both the architectural and exhibition design for the new center, and then eventually construction. So I'll walk you through the 3 phases that we are working on now. And they're called phase 1A, phase 1B, whatever, because we initially thought all of that work would get done in the first round, and it turned out to be a much more complicated job than we anticipated, because the building is in much worse condition than was apparent. So we did engage a new architectural and engineering team in August. Clark and Green, many of you know, they're located in Great Barrington, and they worked on our historic structure report, so they know the building well. They are just now, they've completed the construction drawings to repair the structure, the rest of the structure, to remediate the mold and a little bit of asbestos abatement, and to complete the roof project. This phase has been funded by Housatonic Heritage's, or through Housatonic Heritage, from the National Park Service, from the town of Great Barrington's CPA program, and others. And as soon as we have approval of the construction drawings from the Park Service and Mass Historical, we will put this out to bid. We are hoping that we will see construction work on the site this summer or fall. Here you see work that's been taking place on the subsequent phase, which is the basement phase, where the design work is in progress now. The structural engineers have been on site as of last fall to assess the condition of the foundation. You can see 2 images here that show, the very different kinds of foundation on the 4 sides of the building. So that design work is in progress and funded, but we do not yet have funding for the construction, for this construction phase. So we'll be working on that. These have not been shared, so you're getting a first peek at these. The architectural and engineering team has developed a new schematic with a lower level entry. We're very excited about this. What you're seeing is a conceptual drawing here. They're also working on a site plan so that we can go to the town for a special permit and to address zoning issues and whatnot. So this is exciting, and they've also been working on the interior floor plan as well. So this work is all in progress. This design work is all, funding for this design work has all been secured. Our exhibition design team, Crown, who had been on hiatus from 2020 until last September, is working on the exhibition design. So this is actually a look at outside, and you can see in and what might be seen. These are, again, very rough, the conceptual. Don't worry, oh, there's a red, this could be a big red tower. That's for the elevator, and we don't know what color it's going to be. They're also working on the inside exhibition design. Now, they had completed an interpretive plan with us in 2020. Now they're getting into like what specific stories will be told where. And this is an example of the the lower level of the parsonage, sort of the entry area, and what will be in each location. So they've done this for all 3 levels. So just to say that obviously none of this could be done without the incredible support not only of more than 500 individual donors, but from our funders. The Park Service has been one of our biggest supporters. We've received funding from federal sources, state and local municipalities, and also private foundations. You can see a list here. One other bit of news that's also not yet been made public is that we have recently received a $1.1 million grant from the Mellon Foundation. Most of that funding will actually go to, or a good part of that funding will go to a national search for a new permanent executive director. And it will also fund some of the restoration work we're doing now, programming, including the Du Bois Forum, which we launched last year. We held the first retreat for writers, artists, and scholars of color, and Kendra Field, who is our current historian in residence, will be engaged with this funding to continue that. This is a 3-year grant. We're very excited. It is also allowing me to step into a project management role. So I will be doing that this month, really focusing on the restoration and design work and managing that, and continuing to raise capital funds for the rest of the work. So that's my slightly extended presentation. You can find out more about the project or send other folks who are interested to duboisfreedomcenter.org. Thanks very much.
Fabulous. That's an amazing project, and it really will elevate the profile of Du Bois in Great Barrington, as well as illuminating the contributions of the African-American community in the Berkshires. National, international story, and befitting of a fine facility that the Du Bois Freedom Center is destined to be. Quite a lot of work undergoing there. Thank you, Eugenie. Next up is Judith Monachina, Director of the Housatonic Heritage Oral History Center at Berkshire Community College. Thank you, Judith.
Can you see my site?
Yes.
Oh, great. So I'm going to just report on a couple of projects that are completed. I'm very happy to say. There are a bunch of projects that are either at the very beginning or near the end or somewhere in the middle. Most of these projects take a long time. This one, the Legacy Collections with Berkshire County Historical, we haven't even started yet. But we have finished something with Berkshire Historical. They actually finished it. And I'm really excited about it because it was a very long-term project. From the 90s, this was a project at Berkshire County Historical with Barbara Allen, who was the director at the time.
Damn, I didn't want to miss one part that just.
And Frances Jones Sneed was the Mass Humanities Scholar. There were 22, I think, interviews done, and they were in a box at MCLA, in the MCLA library, and Frances told me about them, so I went and got them with her permission and brought them to Berkshire Athenaeum, where Alex Roskowski, the director, had volunteered to find volunteers to make digital copies of them, which they did. And then we hired an intern to do an inventory of all of the state of the condition of all of it. And we turned the inventory and the digital copies back over to the Berkshire Historical. They actually got a grant from Mass Humanities to finish the project, and I helped them do that by sort of going between the transcription company and them and helping to sort of steward that part of the project. Some of the interviews needed some technical work, and Leslie found someone to do that. And now all of these interviews that were in a box in a library are now available for you to see and hear. So I just want you to hear one, like 20 seconds of one of them.
This is Isaac Crawford. We're at the home of Elizabeth Caesar on Daniels Avenue in Pittsfield to interview her for oral history for the invisible community. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, how are you, Isaac?
Hi, thanks, and you?
Fine, thanks.
Okay, let's begin with some questions. You have an idea what the background of this is all about. We discussed that, right? So who were your parents?
My parents was Helen Blanche Fry, that was my mother, and my father was Lloyd Moorhead.
So that just gives you an idea that they sound terrific. And they are so evocative, and they go, the stories go so far back. This is extremely exciting to me because it's the nuts and bolts of what we do, and it requires lots of hands. Many hands were involved in this work. And Leslie made it all happen at the end, which is so exciting. So that's one. And then another one that recently was completed, and we've been working on this one for a long time. Actually, it's 1/4 of a huge project, but it's the big quarter because it's one that needed maybe the most intervention. And that was the Four-Town Oral History Inventory Project we started a long time ago. The idea was to inventory as a pilot 4 towns' oral history collections. In some cases, people didn't know what kinds of things they had in their boxes. They knew it was oral history. So we hired someone, Christine Beers at Sharon found 2 people to do the work, and we paid them and helped them develop an inventory, and they inventoried the 4 towns. And then, so we had this great knowledge about what was in all the 4 towns archives in terms of oral history, and what the condition was, what the formats were, et cetera. There were 32 plus tapes at Sharon. And so again, it was many steps. There was the inventory, which is the essential first step. And then we also paid an intern to do the digital copying, Cherise Hutchins, who worked there for about a year, I think, a couple hours a week, making digital copies of all of these. And now they are, and then getting them ready for the Connecticut Digital Archive, and they are there in the archive and online, so we can listen. And I mean, here's another little piece, a snippet.
Right, obey. And your date of birth and your age.
1889.
Right. And
All right, do you want to copy it down?
yeah, it's copying right now.
Oh, it is.
It's just ignore this thing, it's
Well, what to you? When I'm talking, it records, huh?
sure. Picks everything right up.
So you get a sense of the incredibly rich stories we're going to hear from these people. This guy is born in 1889. The project was recorded in 1975, nearly 50 years ago, and was sitting in a box in the Sharon Historical Society until recently. So I feel like we're very proud of this sort of behind the scenes, completely behind the scenes kind of work that gets done over long periods of time. I just will say quickly that we continue to do lots of workshops and trainings on this year. It's been podcasting, interviewing, and I think those, and story circles. We've done a lot of story circles and story circle training. So that's basically it. I am happy to talk with anyone about any of these projects. And invite you to just poke around on this page if you're interested in reading about them. I try to keep it pretty well up to date. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you, Judith. Yeah, and that's one of the very earliest concepts we spoke about when we were looking at creating the Oral History Center, and Judith's important work is, how to deal with the huge volume of recordings that have been undertaken, but still sit undigitized, unarchived. And, it's caused sleepless nights for myself. I can't imagine for Judith as well. And any director of a history organization who had these resources in their collections, but unsure how to advance the program to get those digitized and into a true archive. And the benefit, that Judith has brought not only is the technical resources, but the practical resources of digitizing, transcribing, and then delivering these resources to a true digital archive, so that as Kodak says, different methods of delivering the audio or video changes over the years, that our digital archive partners, UMass Amherst Digital Commonwealth and the Connecticut Digital Archive, are constantly updating all of these files behind the scenes. So when you hit the play button, it plays, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. That we've got a partner that's keeping an eye on the technology. Just think back to Betamax and VHS, and then cassettes and 8-tracks and
Oh, yeah.
no,
Kent has some reel-to-reels that we're working with, so. But I do want to say that this is really only possible when people like Leslie and Christine Beers are really engaged. It just doesn't happen unless the directors or whoever it is responsible at the organization is really, really interested in it. And that's the key. It's not me. It's that they're the ones doing the actual on the ground work. I'm just sort of helping them put it together. So thank you, Leslie. It's very exciting.
Great. Thanks, Judith. Next up is Vivian Orlowski, and Vivian directs our Operation Pollination program here in the Upper Housatonic Valley. Thank you, Vivian. Take it away.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate the opportunity to share highlights about Housatonic Heritage Operation Pollination. And let's start with a few key questions. Next slide, please. What is Operation Pollination? It's a framework for pollinator habitat restoration and education, initiated in Minnesota in 2018 and already adopted by 20 national heritage areas from a total of 62 national heritage areas in the country. And Rotary International and 50 Rotary districts have also become active in Operation Pollination. I participate in bi-monthly Operation Pollination ambassadors meetings online. And this is a group who are advancing this initiative in their regions, and we're eager to learn about each other's projects. Next slide, please. So why care about pollinators? In 1987, eminent Harvard biologist, naturalist, entomologist E.O. Wilson made the case for, quote, the little things that run the world. Wilson calculated that if invertebrates were to disappear, it was doubtful that the human species could last more than a few months. That explains why, with human survival at stake, we're now hearing alarms about the insect apocalypse, quote unquote. Next slide, please. Well, who is paying attention? Until recently, it's been scientists, entomologists, ecologists, naturalists documenting the growing crisis. This didn't happen overnight, but now awareness is growing. Just a few days ago, Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank, who's not an environmentalist, confessed his own gardening obliviousness and also confronted his readers about how our gardens are, quote unquote, killing the earth. Milbank critiqued the environmental wastefulness of lawns, 50 million acres of turf grass in the US, and suggested the importance of landscaping with native plants. Next slide, please. It's encouraging to hear from newly awakened journalists like Dana Milbank, but indigenous traditions that are thousands of years old can provide unique perspectives. They can inspire us to become architects of abundance. For example, this brief clip from Diné educator Lila June about the 3,000-year-old solutions to modern problems. Could you please play click on the link for the excerpt?
And Vivian, I just want to confirm you wanted to start at 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Correct.
Okay,
And
just let me know.
end at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah.
Perfect.
People have proven is possible. For tens of thousands of years, Native people of this land constructed beautiful gardens all around them. Contrary to the myth of the primitive Indian, we were not passive observers of nature, nor were we wandering bands of nomads looking for a berry to eat or a deer to hunt. No. By and large, we were active agents in shaping the land to produce prolific abundance. We expanded and designed grasslands and forests for the benefit of all life. And in many places, we still do these things. We became what the world calls a keystone species, or a species upon which entire ecosystems depend. And our cultures became keystone cultures, refined over time. Now, much was made last year about the positive environmental.
Sorry to cut her off if she has a lot to say, but due to time constraints, let's go back to what we're doing now, inspired by such statements and even more that Lila June offers. And by the way, she's going to be a speaker in a series on food and the environment that Kripalu is sponsoring starting next week. So that's free and accessible to the public if you go to their website, or Dan, I can send you the link, and she's definitely worth listening to. Anyhow, inspired by that and also by the speakers that we had as part of our honoring our Indigenous Heritage course, we are focusing on education. Could you please go to the next slide?
Effect of.
Yeah, this was the course that was last year, which we mentioned in our previous presentation in August. But in September, we continued with an on-site experience, a guided walk on the Bidwell House Museum grounds. And this was an effort, collaboration between Housatonic Heritage and Berkshire Community College's Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Next slide, please. Yeah, here's Russ Cohn up and close with one of his plants. I don't remember. I asked him which one this was, but I don't remember. Maybe some of you know better than I do. But he has a fascinating way of tying in his current interest in wild edibles and looking back at what Native Indigenous people, how they used local plants. And next slide, please. This awakened the interest of a Berkshire Eagle journalist who attended Russ's Wild Edibles Walk and resulted in a feature article in the Eagle, which helped publicize Bidwell House Museum, Ollie, and Housatonic Heritage. Next slide, please. Housatonic Heritage's Operation Pollination Program is gaining attention beyond our region. In the fall, in September, I was invited by the National Park Service National Heritage Areas Program to present to their September 22nd Best Practices meeting, which was focused on pollinator partnerships at several national heritage areas. And this is a screenshot of the YouTube presentation with my familiar first slide and some of the people listening from other national heritage areas. I think there were about 30 people on the call from across the country. Next slide, please. Regionally, I also help publicize our work and our issues by presenting Operation Pollination to the 6th Annual Berkshire Natural History Conference, which was co-sponsored by BCC, MCLA, and Williams, took place on October 1st. And it was coordinated at BCC by the environmental sciences professor Tom Tyning. Next slide, please. At that time, around 6 months ago, Dan and I started conversations with Tom Tyning about Housatonic Heritage possibly sponsoring a pollinator plan for the BCC campus in coordination with the Conway School's graduate program in sustainable landscape planning and design. I had worked with the Conway School very successfully on developing the Great Barrington Pollinator Action Plan in 2018, and also a Growing Better Great Barrington Food System plan in 2022, last year. Next slide, please. So after about 6 months of discussions and preparations, the BCC Plan for Climate Resilience and Pollinators launched this week. The long-term vision is for BCC's 180-acre campus to provide diverse, pollinator-friendly, and climate-resilient landscape models for student and community education. Conway School student team, grad student team, will develop designs for designated areas of campus with input from BCC students, faculty, staff, and administrators. And broader community participation will be encouraged in 2 community town halls or community forums. Yesterday, we had the first meeting of a core team from BCC, faculty, student, and staff, and with the grad student team of Shane Geiger and Ted Martini, who have impressive previous experience individually working for the National Park Service and serving as a garden manager for a botanical garden. Next slide, please. The 180-acre BCC campus includes wetlands, forests, and a 15-acre upland meadow, which is surrounded by and accessed via the John Lambert Nature Trail. Next slide, please. The BCC Plan for Climate Resilience and Pollinators will also include the core campus, which is most heavily used, with buildings and parking lots, as you can see in this slide. Next slide, please. Collaboration with OLLI, which I mentioned previously in reference to Russ Cohn, is continuing with planning for habitat as the new theme for a variety of events in 2023 and 2024. Our first event, in coordination with what's happening with the BCC plan, will be on Monday, May 8th, about providing habitat for pollinators, birds, and other essential wildlife. Amy Meltzer, the experienced speaker from the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, will describe why and how to plant a native garden. And Housatonic Heritage is co-sponsoring this event with OLLI in order to provide free access to the public via Zoom, and it will be broadly publicized to make it more accessible. Next slide, please. I mentioned the Massachusetts Pollinator Network. This is a program of the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Massachusetts, and is a very active group, and has monthly meetings and invited speakers, and also a great place to network and to learn about what local towns are doing, and regional initiatives, as well as state policies, and advocate for pollinators on all levels. Next slide, please. Along with coordinating with the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, we also have recently made contact, thanks to Dan, with Homegrown National Park, co-founded by Doug Tallamy and Michelle Alfandari, who lives in, I think, in Sharon, Connecticut, in our region. And they are launching, or they have launched over the past year and a half, an ambitious project to, next slide, you can see, with the goal of converting 20 million acres from lawns to native habitat. And the illustration is of a brochure that's available on their website. The previous slide and this one gives very specific ideas and help. And their website has a lot of resources to help further this goal. We continue to seek ways of coordinating with them, and the Massachusetts Pollinator Network is exploring a partnership with them. Next slide, please. So to end, I think it's suitable with the Homegrown National Park and our partnership with them, their can-do attitude, which we agree with, and I'd like to conclude with Doug Tallamy's guidance, and the quote, which is hard to see on the screen, is, "In the past, we have asked one thing of our gardens, that they be pretty. Now they have to support life, sequester carbon, feed pollinators, and manage water." Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Vivian. Operation Pollination is, as I said, one of our very active programs now, and we are so grateful for the partnership with Berkshire Community College and the support of the Conway School in developing a plan there for the campus. And as is our custom as an organization, we're dedicated to education and engaging with young people in our heritage. And one such program is, BCC and Operation Pollination, our partnership with the Oral History Center, and many of the other programs that we run. I'm just going to point out very, very briefly, just, so if you want to play like the first 30 seconds of this, Mariah, that'd be terrific.
It's Housatonic. They're going to tell us a bit about the history of the trout bed. Good morning. My name is Linus Barnes, and I'm a junior at Housatonic Valley Regional High School. Our journey to studying Troutbeck's unique place in America's past began back in September, when a large group of students from all of our schools gathered for an overview of this site's history.
That's great. This is one teeny little piece in a project called the Troutbeck Symposium. It's a very loose collaborative of public and private schools throughout the region, and faculty who are willing to give the free rein to their students to choose topics of history and to do self-exploration. The culminating event is the symposium. It's actually coming up at the tail end of April, again, symposium number 2 at the Troutbeck Estate in Amenia, New York. Yeah, did you want to play a quick clip from this one too?
Hello. So, approximately 5 months ago, we as a school all went to Troutbeck and learned that we would probably have to do a history project about it. And the scary thing was, this thing is probably going to be a really big chunk of the history spring term grades. I'm taking a huge risk by putting casual language in the beginning. Hi. But nevertheless, most of us thought of the same thing when we went to Troutbeck. Why this one specific place as a focal point that not a lot of people have heard about? Reform has definitely happened in other places, so what's really special about this estate now converted hotel area?
This was a student-led project, obviously, to talk about the student-led projects. So, we're really happy to be a supporter of the Troutbeck Symposium 1.0 and now 2.0. The public is invited to partake in the student presentations. It's staged at the Troutbeck's ballroom, and it's a combination of stationary, poster boards, presentations, website presentations on static screens, etc., plus live presentations throughout the day delivered by the students. And so you get just this wide, some of the students actually explored Troutbeck as a historic site in itself. Others undertook a wide range of other topics, including, like, for instance, the Lakeville School for Imbeciles. Of all, there's just such a wide range of history topics, and the students are given free rein to choose their topics and dive in any way that they can with faculty support, and then do a presentation at the symposium. So just putting it out there that it's an amazing congregation of multiple schools and students from all backgrounds coming together to present what they've enthusiastically explored. So that's coming up. We're on deadline now for ending the meeting, but again, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. Please visit our website at housatonicheritage.org, where you can find all the programs that we've talked about today, as well as links out to many of the programs' independent websites. And we could talk forever. I could talk forever about it. I love the work that I do, and I'm entirely grateful for the support of my board in pursuing all of this. But Will, did you want to, as chair, give a parting comment?
Nothing in particular, just thanks to everybody that took the time to listen today, and thanks to everybody doing the great projects, the great work. Here's to a productive year and a year of good weather and just the right amount of rain.
Yeah. Terrific. Thanks so much again for joining us today, and we'll post a video from today's meeting so you can review it if you care to. Thanks very much. Bye now.